let's see. All right, so thank you everybody for coming. Welcome to the first time we're doing a vigil for Mary. I am going to turn things over to my dear friend, Donna Daniels.
Thank you, Valerie. And as Valerie said, I want to welcome all of you for joining us this evening. Those of you who have attended our annual services before in Springfield, and especially to those of you who have not been able to join us. Many of us probably would have been in Springfield right about now. But of course, the events of this year are sort of forcing our hand to do something differently. Those of you who've been to Springfield with us know usually on the evening of July 15th is when we have our strawberry party. We get together in a meeting room at a hotel and have some light refreshments, usually with a lot of emphasis on the strawberry, of course. And just socialize, get together, you know, catch up on what we've all been doing over the past year, maybe have a short informational program or play some games like the trivia contest that we had earlier this week. But of course, with the virus situation, we decided some time ago that we would have to cancel going to Springfield, and we were all bummed about it. Then Valerie Gugala had the brilliant idea that we could carry out our memorial services. We'd have to do it a little differently, obviously, but we could still do it if we met online with Zoom. Several advantages of that were that people who normally can't attend for one reason or another would now be able to come and join and participate. Also, that we would be able to add some additional activities and programs that we normally don't get a chance to do either. And so I really want to thank Valerie for the phenomenal job, first of all, for coming up with that brilliant idea. And also for the phenomenal job that she's done of organizing this and getting everything online for us, handling the registrations, doing all of the publicity work for it, recording it and posting it for people who aren't able to, you know, watch it as we're doing it live. So I just want to thank Valerie for the absolutely fantastic job you've done on this. I don't know, I can't speak for the rest of y'all, but I know that there was no way in the infernal regions that I would be able to put this together like Valerie has. So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, as we know, July 15th is the evening on which Mary Lincoln fell into the coma from which she never recovered. And as such, we thought that we would try something different this year since we're doing this virtually and doing a lot of things differently this year. Instead of a strawberry party tonight, we thought that we would try to hold a vigil service. Candles are traditionally lit during a vigil service. So for those of you who have brought candles, I invite you to light them at this time as I offer a short prayer. Watch thou, dear Lord, with those who wake or watch or weep tonight, and give to thine angels charge over those who sleep. Tend thy sick ones, O Lord, rest thy weary ones, bless thy dying ones, soothe thy suffering ones, and shield thy joyous ones, all for thy love's sake. Amen. Amen. Again, as we know, this is the night that Mary slipped into the coma. We also know that she had many health problems leading up to this, but since no autopsy was ever performed, it's difficult to know the actual causes of the stroke. Perhaps the doctor attending her that night may be able to tell us. Please come with us now as we enter a room in the home of Elizabeth and Ninian Edwards in Springfield, Illinois. It's the morning of July 16th, 1882.
Oh, Mrs. Edwards. Miss Lincoln still resting comfortably? I see by your nudge. I think I need to get to my medical notes here for a couple of minutes. Don't worry, Dr. Dresser will be back in the sick room in about 10 minutes. I will see you and Mrs. Lincoln then. Notes for patient Mary Todd Lincoln. Where do I begin? Suffers from terrible headaches, more frequent since carriage accident while in the White House. Sometimes takes medicine prescribed by Dr. Stone in 1864 that was furnished to ease the bilious headaches. Her records from Dr. Danford in Chicago indicated that severe headaches, joint and muscle pain, incontinence, swelling, and insomnia were observed in 1873. Perhaps I better get my current patient information down here while I've got a minute. Requires curtains drawn and low light level, which helps with the headaches. Has a number of abscesses on her body from sleeping only on one side. Walked in her room under her own perambulation on July 14th. Required assistance to walk anywhere on July 15th. Suffered a paralytic stroke at 9 p.m. last night. Cannot eat, speak, or move any part of her body. Semi-comatose, and now since early morning. Comatose. Okay, how about my medical journal observations? Currently taking a chloral hydrate for sleeping problems. This is not capable of causing a stroke in Mrs. Lincoln, but its excessive use could have caused some of her agitation at times with Mr. and Mrs. Edwards and her insistence on staying isolated in her room. It seems that a minor stroke could have preceded this major occurrence, as indicated by her motor issues on July 15th. This could have resulted in further brain blockage or a blood clot that caused the paralytic stroke the next day. I recall in 1880, she had 2 serious falls which could have indicated potential future stroke. Those falls were indicated by her sister. Let's see. During the next year, she lost over 100 pounds of weight. This dramatic weight loss, along with kidney issues and decreasing eyesight, may have been a result of a situation of comorbidity. The kidney issues, the eyesight, the falls, along with the weight loss, may indicate the onset of severe diabetes, melanitis. Based on her current condition, a Barswill test solution for sugar is not recommended. This 1862 test would have been simple to administer, and I think if she recovers, I will recommend to Mrs. Edwards that I perform that test. Dr. William Proud's research indicated that if diabetes is suspected, this might be a diabetic coma, not a stroke. Her previous falls may have been a result of diabetes. Only with a test can I really be sure. I'll have to ask Mrs. Edwards what Mrs. Lincoln has been eating to see if there's a clue in her nutritional habits that could influence either of these prognoses. Yes, Mrs. Edwards, I'm coming. You say she stopped breathing? What time is it? 8:15 a.m., July 16, 1882. She was only 63 and a half. She's finally gone home to her Abraham. Since it's useless to perform any of these tests, I will use the term apoplexy on her death certificate. It comes from the Greek, a term used to denote a disease in which a patient falls to the ground awfully suddenly, and lies without sense or voluntary motion. People are instantaneously affected as if they were struck by lightning. Now I'm going to talk to you not as Dr. Dresser, but as possible modern options for Mary Lincoln's death. On July 14th, Mary had a TIA stroke prior to a major stroke on the 15th. It is possible the initial stroke involved a blood clot that then moved or burst a major blood vessel in the brain after the initial seepage on the 14th. If you have diabetes, modern science has determined that the chances of having a stroke are 1.5 times higher than those who do not have diabetes. Her inactivity would have accelerated the complications, which could have led to the stroke. The carriage injury back in 1864 and the resulting head trauma could have resulted in damage or weakness that caused the final stroke. We do know that she suffered from post-traumatic migraines. Only modern science could have ruled out a brain bleeding that resulted in long-term damage. There were no MRIs at that time. Robert did make a statement his mother was never right after the accident. Perchloral hydrate for sleeping has negative side effects. These include increased blood pressure, kidney problems, swelling of the feet or ankles, feeling tired, shortness of breath, and blurred vision. It increases blood pressure, which could have contributed to the stroke. Strokes can be caused by paradisius anemia or a lack of vitamin B12. It leads to fatigue, headaches, chest pain, weight loss, pale skin, unsteady walking, muscular weakness, dementia, and loss of appetite. One of the factors of this disease also is type 1 diabetes. It is possible that the diabetes could have also caused the vitamin B12 problem that led to the final stroke. Finally, Robert Todd Lincoln died in his sleep in his Vermont home on July 26, 1926, a week before his 8th birthday. The cause of death was given by his physician as cerebral hemorrhage induced by arteriosclerosis. This might be an indication that the hardening of the arteries led to the final stroke. Diabetes is known to raise the risk for hardening of the arteries. There are also some correlations indicating that hardening of the arteries is a genetic defect.
Wow. That's some really
that
good
gives you a little bit of background on possibilities.
possible things it could have been.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dresser.
By the way, behind me is one of the rooms in the home in Springfield.
Cool. Attention to detail.
Yes.
For those of you who don't already know him, I would like to introduce our good friend, Dr. Trevor Steinbach. Although he's not a medical doctor in real life, he is one of the most knowledgeable and most well-respected Civil War surgeons in the country. He's a personal friend of Max and mine, a very good friend of the coterie. He has previously done several presentations at our annual luncheons, once telling us about some of the prevalent diseases during that time, how to recognize them coming on, how to treat them. And most recently, what Mary would have experienced when she was visiting soldiers in the hospitals in Washington, what she would have seen, what she would have heard, and even what she might have smelled. And let me tell you, that was very enlightening. He's always been extremely gracious whenever we've asked him for help, and we are grateful that he once more agreed to share his medical knowledge with us and give us some more information about Mary during her final hours. Thank you, Trevor. Mary passed away in the
You're
home.
welcome.
Mary passed away in the home of her sister, Elizabeth Edwards, the same house where she and Abraham had been married in 1842. In thinking about this evening in particular, it occurred to me that at almost every crucial point in Mary's life when she needed someone to turn to, she always seemed to turn to Elizabeth. So I've asked Laura Keyes to just say a few words about the relationship between Mary and her big sister. Laura, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Donna. You see behind me, I have lit my candles. These are actually the sconces that Robert installed a couple months ago, and they flicker just like candles, so that really counts. So as Icon said, Elizabeth was a sister, and in some ways she was a mother to Mary. Elizabeth was her big sister, about 5 years older. And just as a reminder, Mary's mother died when she, Mary, was 6.5 years old, which meant that Elizabeth was a little over 10. And even though they were separated, because Elizabeth married what we would call at a young age, and she moved to Springfield soon afterwards, Mary does join her as soon as it does become possible for her to join her. And we have to remember, Mary actually had other relatives with whom she could stay, yet it does seem that she was the most comfortable with Elizabeth. We know that Mary stayed briefly with her relatives in Missouri, and of course she had others. She had others throughout Kentucky, but she chose to stay with Elizabeth. Elizabeth was a tie for home, in a sense, with Mary, home in not a physical sense, because Mary was definitely one of those many people who believed that home is where the heart is, home is where the people that she loved is, because Mary's first home was no longer her home. That building had actually been sold, and her father bought a new, larger building, and she was told that was her home. Well, for a short time, she made Madame Mantel's her home. But Elizabeth was a tie to her emotional home. Elizabeth was also a tie to tradition, which Mary sometimes loved or sometimes ignored, whichever she was wont to do. But perhaps this is why Mary agreed to have the wedding ceremony at Elizabeth's house. For it's possible Mary was also comfortable having it at the preacher's home. But she appreciated tradition when it was convenient for her to do so. As Icon said, it's not surprising that Mary turned to Elizabeth during the major events of her life, the births, the deaths, and even the pinnacle of Mary's social life, becoming First Lady of the United States. She wanted Elizabeth there to celebrate that achievement, which Mary considered that she had achieved. After Abraham's death, Mary struggles to return to Elizabeth, and actually, as we know, did not physically return to Elizabeth to live with her, since the town of Springfield contains so many mixed emotions. However, when Mary does regain the strength, and I truly do see it that way, she regained her strength to remove herself from the Bellevue place in 1875. That's when Mary does turn to Elizabeth. Yes, it could be said that she was forced to, but I believe that it was mostly her choice. The majority was her choice to return to Elizabeth. And after her health dwindles so far that she can hardly care for herself, Mary again turns to Elizabeth for assistance. And Elizabeth, I believe, sends her son to escort Mary back to Elizabeth's home in 1881 to live with her. Mary was in Elizabeth's house, possibly in her presence, when she lost consciousness. And Elizabeth's presence was clearly a comfort and a soothing influence on Mary. And it is a lovely thought that Mary was comforted and soothed in her last moments.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate that very much. As Laura referred to, Mary did achieve the pinnacle of her social life by becoming the wife of the president, the first lady. Well, tonight the wife of a former president is passing away, but Mary Lincoln is not only a former first lady. She is a wife, she's a mother, she's a sister, and she is a friend. So I'd like to ask Valerie Gogala to tell us more about some of the other people to whom Mary Lincoln's life mattered.
Today, we're here to honor the memory of Mary Lincoln. She held many titles in her life, among them daughter, sister, aunt, and of course, First Lady. But to Mary, the names that meant the most to her were wife and mother. She once wrote to her daughter-in-law, Mary Harlan Lincoln, "A nice home, loving husband, and precious child are the happiest stages of life." Mary's love for her husband was matched only by her love for her children. Both she and Abraham adored their children, and some would say this caused them to be overly indulgent parents. She threw them elaborate birthday parties and often joined in their games, not caring what other people thought of these actions. Neighbor Julia Spriggs said of Mary, "She was the kind of woman that children liked, and children would be attracted to her." And one of the sons of Mrs. Dubois remembered how he and other boys would play at the Lincoln home and the motherly, sympathetic way that Mrs. Lincoln would watch over them and give them cookies. Her love for her children was deep and unqualified. She reveled in their accomplishments. She hurt with their sorrows, and she felt sheer joy and delight in spending time with them. This statement by Ruth Painter Randall sums up the Lincoln's life in Springfield, in my opinion. There was love in the house on 8th Street. There was fun and playfulness. There was the joy of children. Now, memorial services are generally sad events, but I think in the case of Mary Lincoln, we perhaps shouldn't be too somber. We should remember that today and tomorrow are the anniversaries of the day that she longed for, the day that granted her her most fervent wish, to be reunited with her angel boys and her adored husband. Mary didn't fear death. She welcomed it with open arms. She dreamed of being with her Mr. Lincoln again. She prayed to be relieved of her grief, to have no more tears shed and no more separations to endure. Mary took the most joy in her life from her role as wife and mother. She wrote to her sister Emily shortly after the birth of Emily's first child that she hoped that Emily was now, quote, "a happy, loving, laughing mama." I'm sure that's how Mary would want us to remember her today. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you, Valerie. That was beautifully done. From ancient times, the element of light has often been compared to life itself. Sunlight, firelight, candlelight. Mary Lincoln's light is fading tonight. Those of you who have lit actual candles may begin extinguishing them at this time. But if you will be joining us for the memorial service tomorrow evening, we invite you to relight them again before the beginning of that service. Those of you with electric candles may more safely be able to leave them burning until then if you choose to do so. And once the candles have been extinguished, I invite you to join in a moment of silence, please. Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Invite all of you to join us tomorrow evening, Thursday, July 16th, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. If you are not registered for that yet, we remind you to make sure you do that, get the code to join the meeting. We look forward to seeing you at the memorial service, the one that's usually held at 10 o'clock in the morning on July 16th. Planning it for 7:30 on the evening of the 16th. We hoped would make it easier for some people, again, people who may be working during the day, make it easier for them to join us in the evening. So we certainly hope that you will be able to join us for that. And we thank you again for attending our vigil service this evening. Valerie, is there anything else that you wanted to add, or Queenie?
Just that I'm still asking if anyone would like to say just a few short words during the memorial service tomorrow. I've had a few people step up, so thank you. Joanne and Pam Vermillion, you both stepped up, and Donna McCrary. But if there's anybody else, we would love to have you just say even just a couple of sentences, just something, because we want to try to open it up. Since we can do it this way, we want to hear from more people. So you don't have to raise your hand or say anything right now. You can message me on Facebook, send me an email, however, just let me know and I will put you on the schedule.
Cool.
And that's all I have.
Queenie, did you have anything?
No,
She's very tired.
Oh.
very.
Well, maybe that's another good reason to call it an early night, maybe, or something.
Yes.
I'd
Thank
like
you
to
for coming, everybody.
Thank Trevor Steinbach again for his excellent presentation as our doctor, and thank Valerie and Laura for their contributions, and thank all of you for coming. We'll see you
And
tomorrow
thank you,
night.
Donna. Thanks, Donna, for running it.
Thank
Very
you.
nice. Thank you.
See you tomorrow night. Night, everyone.